Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Sports Illustrated Las Vegas Raiders beat writer, here again with the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. We are in Orlando today at the NFL owners' meetings. I know this podcast is getting out a little bit later than usual. I understand that. And the reason being is we're at the owners' meetings and we want to bring you as much information as we can. Started last night visiting with some NFL executives and people, done a lot so far today. Got a lot of things to talk to you that are Raider specific, NFL specific, and stuff that I think is going to be very valuable. I just want to take a quick second and thank you for a couple of things. First of all, we are growing so fast, and it's all because of you guys liking, sharing, um, clicking and subscribing, hitting the notification buttons. Second of all, we're going through a really big transition. The front of the house, meaning the doors, the garage doors, the windows, the siding, the paint of Sports Illustrated looks the same, but we're doing some incredible, great things behind the front facade to make your experience even a million times better. And we are so excited about it. It's taken a little bit of time, but you guys have been wonderful and gals have been wonderful. And I just want to thank you all for continuing to read what we write at si.com/NFL/Raiders. Now, this isn't my studio, so clearly it's going to be a little bit louder around me here at the owners' meetings, but we got a lot to get into that we're going to tackle. So make sure you're following me at Hondo Carpenter on X, formerly known as Twitter, and at Hondo SR when it comes to Instagram. All right, so there's a lot of moving pieces going on right now in the NFL that I think are very viable and important to talk about. And the first one is NFL free agency. A lot of people take NFL free agency as a sprint, just bam. And there are some teams that every year trying to maybe infuse excitement into their fan base will go sign a ton of them and they overpay for some guys. Now, there's a problem that you need to understand is when you overpay guys, it creates chemistry issues within teams because players all know what a guy's value is. They all know what it is. And so the Raiders have come into this saying that we are going to be salary cap discipline and we're going to be it's a drinking game. I'm trying to remember the term I can't use. I know the word I can't use, but they've got to be salary cap disciplined, and then they have to just maintain this is what we find a value of a person to be. So let me give you a couple examples and that I've heard thrown around about the Raiders. Is first of all, there's not one person that the Raiders have overpaid for. Everybody's going to walk into that locker room and there's not going to be a division. There's not going to be a problem. If you're a guy and you know you're worth X, let's say you're a guy and you know that you're worth 5 million a year. But you're still on your rookie deal or whatever, and some guy comes in and he's not worth that, but they needed the position so bad they pay him more. It creates chemistry issues. And so the Raiders have really, Tom Telesco has maintained a tremendous sense of discipline, as well as several other teams have this year. There's been a few that haven't, but been more disciplined than usual. I think you saw a rush on interior offensive linemen because that's such a position of need, and because the salary cap went up so much as the league continues to recover from COVID. That there was probably some overpaying, not a lot, but I think there was some, but there was a lot of overpaying at some other positions. So what happens is some teams approach it as a sprint, and then they get guys, they overpay or whatever. The Raiders haven't done that, and they're being lauded for what they've done. Now, there are a couple things you need to know. Every day that you get closer to the draft, free agent pricings may begin to come down to reality. Now, I know for a fact that there are multiple positions that the Raiders have offers at that they would be willing to take players. And they also know the prices that they've set that they're willing to take. And so As the prices continue to come down, I don't think the Raiders are done at all in free agency. And as players' expectations, come down, and as they begin to lower and realize, okay, the market's just not where I thought it was, then you're able to reassess, redo, and reformulate. And then it looks like the Raiders will be in really good position. That being said, the NFL now is transitioning more towards the draft. Free agency still is going on. People know the positions they have. They know the offers that they've made. But now the attention really happens at the owners' meetings, and really it's almost just before the owners' meetings, like literally when I say just before, like a day or two. But the focus now begins to go clearly onto the draft. It doesn't mean that free agency's been forgotten, but now it's turning to, okay, we've got these offers, but if these guys don't take it, here's the direction that we're going to go. And I think that's important. Now, a couple of things that I want to address with you in talking to people. I've talked to several people about the Josh Jacobs deal. The Raiders made him a very generous offer. It was a very good offer, and they knew it was a very good one. And so when he goes with Green Bay, I don't think that they were upset. It wasn't like they tried to treat him like a rag doll. It wasn't like they made him an offer that was an insult. None of that's accurate. They wanted him, and he took the offer with Green Bay. Now, I've asked several people around the league, were you a little bit surprised? And was told by somebody with Green Bay, they were a little surprised that he took the Green Bay offer. It was more money, but the Raiders were very fair. Now, it has been brought to my attention, although I have not seen it, that some Raider fans have gone after Josh a little bit. If that's the case, I have not seen it. I have only been told it. So if it's not true, just blow this off. But if that's true, you're certainly welcome to do whatever you want. I know that he made it clear he wanted to be here, but at the end of the day, he made a business decision. I tweeted this out when it happened. He made a business decision. He should be respected for it, just like the Raiders did. I'm going to tell you, I think there was a feeling around the league that people were a little bit surprised at how generous the Raiders offer was. I think that was the thing that hit me. I learned that last night and then had it reiterated by someone else this morning, that they were a little bit surprised at how generous the Raiders were. They thought maybe even that the Raiders had went a little bit too far. And so the money he got from Green Bay, good for him. But I just want to say, and I don't work for the team, and you guys know that I have sat here before and been critical of the team. I'm not afraid of that. That's my job. But I think the Raiders did everything they could do to sign him and made him a very generous and very fair offer. In fact, again, one that two people have told me they thought was probably even a little bit too high to keep him. So now attention begins to shift for the draft. I think there are several places where there could be needs in draft picks. But the problem is a lot of people are wanting to know, who do you think the Raiders do at 13? What do you think they do at 13? Well, the problem is there's 12 spaces ahead of them. I'm going to be very blunt with you. I think there is a couple of quarterbacks that the Raiders would have moved up for. A couple. However, I don't think any of those are cost effective in the least bit. I think the price is just brutally high, and there's too many teams with quarterback needs. I mean, if you're sitting there and there's 3 or 4 teams that have good picks that you can go get a quarterback and they don't need one, it's easier to have as a trade partner. But if they need one and they're not willing, so for example, I was told there was a report that Washington was willing to trade the spot. What I was told by someone with direct knowledge is that Washington would trade the spot, but somebody would have to just make a stupid offer. And that's the word that I was told, just beyond stupid, where they're going to, you're going to get a French coast quarterback, but you're going to gut your franchise for the next 3 years. So I don't see the Raiders at this point moving up. I think you're going to probably see, well, let's just look at it real quick. Caleb, Jaden, JJ, Drake. I think they'll all be gone in the first 5 picks. I think there's going to be 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 5 picks. Caleb, Jaden, and then I think New England's going to take JJ McCarthy, and then I'll probably think the G-men take Drake May. I mean, not the G-men. I mean, I think Minnesota moves up ahead of the G-men to the Chargers spot at 5 and grabs a quarterback. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, that started to what I'm hearing here. That started late last night. I started hearing a lot of talk among NFL people that Minnesota is looking to move up. And probably, and I'll have more details on this tomorrow about that potential moving up, but how it would look. And that would get them a quarterback at 5. So again, you could have 4 quarterbacks going in the top 5, which is what I think is going to happen right now. I reserve the right to change that opinion, though, after I spend some more time this afternoon with some guys. And then tonight, especially, we had a dinner with some people tonight, and getting some information there as well. So that's kind of how that's unfolding. So I don't think the Raiders are moving up to get a quarterback. I don't see it happening. I don't know that I see them taking a quarterback at 13. I've been telling you that. I just don't think that at this point. I have been asked by a lot of you what I think is going to happen. Now, remember, you're asking me what I think. You're not asking me what I would do. You're not asking me none of that. I'm telling you what I think is Aiden O'Connell is going to be your starting quarterback in 2024. That's what I believe. I think he'll beat out Gardner Minshew. I mean, he's already number 1. I think he'll hold him off, not beat him out. Well, but to hold him off, that is beating him out, I guess. So I think it'll be Aiden O'Connell. But in this league, you have to have 2 quarterbacks. You have to. And I think Gardner Minshew is wonderful to have in that spot. If he beats out Aiden, I think Aiden's wonderful to have in that spot. I think the Raiders are in pretty good shape. And so I just don't see the Raiders going quarterback with 1. And I think there is a chance, but I think probably who they would want it 2 may be off the board. So there's a good chance you don't see the Raiders getting a quarterback in round 1 or 1-2. But they still have 2 very solid quarterbacks in Aiden O'Connell and in Gardner Minshew. All of this is developing now, just getting some more information. I want to talk to you about one of the things I'm hearing here at the NFL meetings about the Raiders is, yes, the discipline, but the impressions that Antonio Pierce is making at pro days in other events that he's at. People are surprised about 2 or 3 things about him. Number 1, he's a very good listener. At one person who was at a pro day that he was at made the comment that they were stunned at how good of a listener he is. I think that is probably a theme that has run and resonated with a lot of people around him, maybe within the organization, but certainly outside around the NFL, is his ability to listen has been very highly regarded. In fact, I plan to talk to him about that tomorrow, just about his listening and his ability to garner and assess and then disseminate information. And for young coaches, that's not always the easiest thing in the world, because you've been the assistant and you had to speak up to be heard. Now you're in the seat and you be quiet to listen because you already know what you think. But the NFL people have been very impressed with him with that. I think there is I don't think there is a sentiment among the NFL that really wants to see, can the Raiders duplicate in a full season what they did last year in 9 games, and really in the last 5 games. Is there a lot of duplicate abilities? If that can be duplicated next year on the field. Now, I'm going to say something that may surprise a lot of you. If the Raiders flip it and win 2 more games and they go 9-8 next year, or even if they flip 3 games, I mean, well, 2 games, 1 game would be 9-8, 2 games would be 10-7. If they can flip 2 games next year, I think there is going to be incredible sentiment about the Raiders. Right now, there is a lot of intrigue. I had a buddy who works for an NFC team say to me this morning, asked me some questions about the Raiders. Nothing was proprietary, nothing that would have hurt the team, just stuff he's heard. And he goes, man, I really hear they got a ton of guys in the building, and they do. They got a ton of guys in that building working every day. Now, the weather's great. Vegas is, I mean, Mark Davis has the best facilities in the NFL. So all that makes sense. But those guys are there. They are a very strong team. They are on the same page. And so that makes it very interesting around the league because they're hearing that. Well, why are they hearing that? Because their players are talking about it. Their players are talking about it. And they're like, hey, listen, I'm hearing, there's a ton of Raiders working out together every day. And there is. Now, I had been told that Malcolm Kuntz doesn't even look or act like the same person. The success has not gone to his head. He's not acting like a super rock star. I don't mean it that way. But that now that he has confidence, his work ethic has even gotten better and it was never bad. Now that he has some confidence, he's taken a leadership role. I've heard that he has really attached himself at the hip with Max. A lot of talk, about a lot of different things about what Malcolm is doing. And here's the thing. If he's able to parlay what he did the last 9 games into a full 2024 season, he's going to make bank. He's going to make bank. And so this is a really good thing for him. Raider Nation, I think you should be very thrilled there. I would not preclude the Raiders from taking a defensive lineman at 13. Just going to tell you that right now. I think it'll be defensive lineman, offensive lineman, or corner. I think those are one of the 3 spots. Now, really quickly, I want to address you about their draft boards. Now that the attention's turning there, I think the draft board's starting to come into focus for them. I think now they're starting to be able to look at and say, okay, here's how we are grading people. I think it's starting. There's still going to be some more interviews. Some guys are going to come in for visits. There's going to be some medical checkups. There could be character issues that they learn throughout the process. So I think character and medical could change the board, but I think the board now is starting to get settled, which is good. Because then as they start to, look, and one thing that I have been told by many people about Tom Telesco is that he's very good at analyzing who's picking ahead of him. What are their needs? Okay, so it's not just, okay, we're picking here. It's we're picking here. Here are our needs. Let's look and see whose other needs are. So as the draft board goes off, he's able to say, okay, the Giants are ahead of us. Here's where their needs, or we may be looking at the same person. They don't have that need. And that he's very thorough in how the draft falls. I've been very clear with you about that. He's very thorough in how the draft falls. So as the draft board now is starting to come together, and really starting to become fixed. Now again, you would see medicals when guys come in, or maybe you learn stuff at pro days. Maybe they come in for a visit. Maybe you learn some character stuff that could impact boards, the draft board. But at this point, I think you're starting to now see it become fixed. So I'm expecting at 13, which is where I think the Raiders will pick, unless they're able to draft back. I've heard a couple of interesting scenarios with if certain players drop, the Raiders can trade 13. I've been hinting at this to you. Look, it's between 17 and 25. You may see some opportunities for somebody to trade up, the Raiders to go down, but the Raiders to pick up an additional second round pick. So think about that. If you look at first and second rounders as potential immediate starters, and now you're able to pick up one first rounder in 2 seconds, that now gives you potential 3 starters instead of 2. So you could go draft an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, and a corner in the first 2 rounds that instantly come in and play. And speaking of that, remember, when I understand the fan perspective is this year right now, but when you draft a player, you've got to remember you're looking at them for 4 or 5 years. I mean, Peyton Manning, after his first year, people wanted to fire him. Jordan Love, who now everybody thinks one of the top young up-and-coming quarterbacks, and I agree with that, by the way, and I said it before last year that I thought he would be good. He had to go in and sit and develop. And so be careful, tap the brakes on guys after 1 year. Just look at all the people all of the players who people thought were trash. I mean, if you look at Tom Telesco's time at Indianapolis, he had a front row seat. Remember Reggie Wayne? He struggled early, and he turned up being a Hall of Famer. So I think it's very important to understand the draft. You're looking at long-term, not short. But where the Raiders sit right now, they're in ideal position. They got offers as prices are coming down, which are good. Their draft board's starting to get settled, which is very good. Again, I don't expect them to move up and get a quarterback at this point. I don't. I think the reality of the situation would preclude it. But I do think there's a shot that somebody could trade. But if I had to pick right now, again, I think it'll be the Raiders making their pick at 13. It'll be offense or defensive line or corner, is what I believe. Additionally, and I think, that this is very important as well from here at the owner meetings, is to talk about how the Raiders just seem to have brought peace that made no sense in a bad way. You could always count on them for dumb penalties. You could always count on them for being in the news for the wrong reasons. Now you turn around, and this is important. The Raiders are being respected for the discipline that they're showing. The Raiders are being talked about for Antonio Pierce and his team being the lowest penalized, thanks to him. You're beginning to see recognition now for the Raiders for good things. If you're a Raider fan, and I'm assuming because you're listening to this, you are, that should excite you about your franchise. That should put you into a place where you're like, you know what? Finally, my team isn't being talked about because of a stupid pick. Finally, my team isn't talked about because somebody did something dumb and is in legal trouble. All of a sudden, this isn't dumb. This isn't bad. This isn't stupid. They're being recognized for guys in the building. They're being recognized for talent, young talent, which I'll get to in a minute. They're being recognized for, okay, they lost a Josh, but man, they made him a great offer. They're being recognized for the discipline with their checkbook. They're being recognized that that their rosters come together in a way that they can trade back. We don't really know who they're going to pick, not because they don't have a need, but because they've addressed needs. All of that is big. And again, I reiterate, coming to you from the owners' meetings, that is the vibe on the Raiders right now. I'm going to use a term I've never used about them. They're healthy. They're in great shape financially with the cap. They're in great shape with their stadium, great shape with their facilities, great shape with their, I think I said, sorry, Cap, their roster, in great shape with harmony between the coach and the general manager. That's fascinating to me. And so the state at the NFL owner meetings of what I'm garnering and talking to a lot of people is healthy. The word is healthy. Your Raiders are healthy. They're in good shape. And I would think this is my 5th year covering the team. I would think as a Raider, that's got to sound good to your ears that you're in good shape. Do I think the Raiders are winning a Super Bowl next year? No. Do I think they're making steps towards the Super Bowl in the coming years? Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's say it again. Absolutely. So there's a lot of good. I'm going to have a ton more in tomorrow's podcast for you that you're not going to want to miss, because I'm going to be visiting with Antonio Pierce tomorrow, having breakfast with him, and I'm going to be talking to him a lot. I'll actually have a video for you also from him that I think you're going to love tomorrow. I have the podcast tomorrow, and a lot more information from owners' meetings. Again, I got dinner tonight with some guys. I'm going to be on the phones. I'll be working the hallways here, getting you a bunch of information. So enjoy this season right now. If I were a president giving you a state of the nation address, or I know the president calls it State of the Union, but this is Raider Nation. If I was giving you a state of the nation address, it would be your team is healthy, top to bottom. Your owner went out and got a general manager who's in charge, which is what I said they needed. Okay. He also has a general manager that has a very popular coach who he gets along with tremendously well. They're both great listeners, and they're working with esprit de corps. It's a Marine Corps team, unity of team, the spirit of the team. They're working together very well. Okay, that's phenomenal. They have players that are a massive amount of players that are in the building that want to be there. They're disciplined in the salary cap. They're aggressive in free agency, but they're prioritizing their guys, but they're not spending stupidly. I know that's not really a word, but they're not spending in a stupid manner. And they're moving forward. So your Raiders are healthy. Here at the owners' meeting, the report is that they're healthy. Again, I expect them to stay at 13 with the possibility of moving back. I don't think they're going to move up and get a quarterback. I just don't think it's viable long-term for them to do that. I expect that there's going to be 4 quarterbacks in the first 5. I think Minnesota may move up and try to trade with the Bolts. I think that's a possibility. I think that's brewing here at the meetings. And again, Josh Jacobs got an extremely generous offer from the Raiders, and it just didn't work out. So no shame on him at all. And again, I've heard that people have gone after him. If you have, come on, stop. He gave you everything. The Raiders made an effort. He made a business decision. You respect it. But eyes on Kuntz, eyes on Trey Tucker. I'm telling you, I'm hearing some things I really, really like. I know someone with a connection to Trey Tucker who has just told me some things about his offseason that I'll get to later. But lots of good stuff coming. I appreciate it. So from here at the owners' meeting, I'm your old pal, Uncle Hondo. Thanks for joining me. I'm your Sports Illustrated beat writer covering the Las Vegas Raiders. This is the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. Remember, follow me on IG at Hondo SR and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Hondo Carpenter. Thanks, everybody, from Muggy, Orlando.